Welcome to Season 3 of E-Commerce Fastlane, Episode 92.
Welcome to E-Commerce Fastlane, the podcast show to help you build, launch, grow, and scale a wildly successful e-commerce company. Listen to real conversations with proven practical strategies and success stories. Learn how to generate more traffic, more sales, more profit, and customer lifetime value for your Shopify store. And now, your host and e-commerce entrepreneur, Steve Hutt.
This episode is brought to you by ShipBob, the best-in-class order fulfillment company for small to mid-size Shopify brands. ShipBob powers 2-day and 3-day shipping and fulfillment for thousands of direct-to-consumer brands. They've also been fully operational during the coronavirus across their 9 fulfillment centers in the US, Canada, and Europe. ShipBob is also a tech-enabled 3PL that fulfills e-commerce orders for direct-to-consumer retailers. Their mission is clear: to make your Shopify brand successful by providing best-in-class logistics so your customers don't go elsewhere. With reliable fulfillment services, warehouses near your customers, and connected technology that powers the fulfillment network, they will help improve transit times, shipping costs, and the delivery experience for your customers. So check them out today at shipbob.com. Hey there, it's Steve, and welcome back to the E-Commerce Fastlane podcast. Now, if this is your first time listening, this is an e-commerce show where we have honest and transparent conversations about building and thriving with your store powered by Shopify or Shopify Plus. New episodes are available each week with your favorite podcast player through iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and Spotify. Or you can also sign up online at ecommercefastlane.com and be notified when a new show is being released. My guest on today's episode is Jerry Zhao, who's the founder and CEO from Retention Science. Now, they're a personalization and customer data platform that helps Shopify brands deliver more personalized messages to create meaningful and personalized relationships for their customers. If you have the desire to understand the strategy and the technology that's necessary to build lifetime customer loyalty for your Shopify brand, then this is going to be a great episode for you to listen into today. So let's jump in and learn together with the founder. So hi, Jerry. Welcome to E-Commerce Fastlane.
Hey, Steve. Thanks so much for having me.
I mentioned at the top of the show a bit. I love to hear it in the founder's own voice. On a high level, what does Retention Science do, and what problems do you solve for Shopify store owners?
Absolutely. We notice that Shopify owners are so busy wearing multiple hats, and sometimes they have to log into so many different systems to manage their day-to-day, whether it's segment their customers to feed some of the segments into their Facebook to run lookalike marketing campaigns, send out emails, push out SMS, and at the end of the day, trying to analyze who has higher lifetime value, what kind of products we should recommend to Steve versus Jerry. So Retention Science was founded upon the mission to really help our owners to be able to leverage AI and machine learning technologies to make decisions smarter and at scale. So for example, we can quickly help you determine when is the best time to send out an email to Steve because he might be a night owl versus Jerry is an early riser. So let's reach out to Jerry and Steve at different time of the day with different content and even with different promotional offers, because we don't believe in that you as a brand and owner should waste a promotional offer on customers that might not need them. And so our goal is to help you automate a lot of these campaigns and deliver a more personalized experience to your customers that delight and ultimately help you win more by maximizing revenue as well as customer engagement.
Yeah, you hear a lot about the whole personalization, kind of the one-to-one, and it kind of reminds me of a call I had this morning where the pet food company, so they have both for dogs and cats, and they're sitting on a list of 10,000 B2C customers, and they're really doing a batch and blast. And I don't think that's necessarily the right thing to do. That's a starting point. Just number one, to have an email list is a good starting point for a brand, but I think the real power is segmenting to understand the life cycle of the customer and finding out through a survey or through some kind of tagging the customer or just order history, knowing, hey, wait a second, these are dog people and they always buy dog food. Why are we showing cat stuff and cat toys? It just seems a wasted real estate. So I guess that's kind of where Retention Science kind of fits into the equation a little bit.
Steve, you're absolutely right. And in addition, I will even add on that Retention Science, because we tackle the customer's browsing behaviors by having a very, very deep integration with Shopify, we can actually predict the gender of each customer based on their email address and their browsing behavior. So we work with many apparel companies on Shopify and identify that potentially she is a female audience versus Steve is a male audience, and being able to really treat them, even just simple tactics like turning our templates into blue versus pink. Again, those are very, very simple tactics, but sometimes not necessarily utilized in ways that are smart to really connect with our customers at even a more personal and more meaningful level. So no doubt it's about delivering the right content to the right customers at the right time at the end of the day.
Excited to be in commerce, learning about these kind of technologies that are out there to really help brands. So let's pivot a tiny bit over about your journey. It's always exciting to me to understand, why people build what they build. You have a B2B product. You're helping other business owners grow and scale. So what would you say uniquely positions you and the founding team, I guess, number one, to have the desire, and number two, to have the expertise to want to create this platform and your professional services?
Sure. It goes way back to 1998, Steve. I started a commerce on eBay, and I was actually a power seller selling Game Boy games to gaming consoles and DVDs and just basically anything that you can imagine and picture a pretty nerdy kid that would be interested in. I was selling them. So I definitely come from a merchant's sort of perspectives in terms of how do I run my business? How do I operate in a smarter way at scale with data supporting me, making those decisions? So I started Retention Science about just a little over 8 years ago now with my co-founder and CTO, Andrew Wagi, who also actually separately had his own drop shipping business selling electric violins, as he's a classically trained violinist. We spent so much time acquiring customers, trying to get leads, and we were using other technologies to help us communicate with them. But one of the biggest challenges was constantly bombarding customers with the same messages, and we just find ourselves becoming less relevant to the customers that we're speaking to. And more importantly, we discovered that in the early days that it really cost less than a third of cost to retain existing customers to get them to buy more than really acquiring a new one. And I think these days, like all the merchants listening to the podcast today can probably attest to that spending ads and spending media dollars to really get eyeballs and traffic on our site, that is still the bread and butter and of our spend, and they're very, very expensive. I really would love to encourage all of you to think about how do you invest in actually the gold mine that you're sitting on, which is your existing customer base. How do you fundamentally transform the way you speak to them to develop a meaningful, long-lasting relationship with your customers? And that's exactly why we started our business, is to help fellow merchants and owners to be able to actually build out a stronger customer retention efforts, and ultimately leads to higher lifetime value and greater sales.
Thanks for sharing that. The topics on this show, the ones that tend to resonate with most listeners, are the growing and the scaling. We talk at the beginning, it's build, launch, grow, and scale.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people have already built, they've already launched, they're now in a growth or a scale phase. So these topics are quite hot. So it makes me think about, as you mentioned, there's two sides of the coin here. There is the customer acquisition side, which is, I guess, driving the awareness and consideration for a brand. So that's kind of like what we call the top of funnel. And then on the other side of the coin are more the retention strategies, the advocates and the customer satisfaction and the loyalty and the lifetime value, these sorts of topics. So are you able to maybe talk about maybe how you believe brands should be splitting up their marketing efforts and their budgets based on the acquisition side and then the customer retention side?
Absolutely, Steve. And I would say some of it really depends on the stage in which you are in. Depends on where your business is. If you're like some of the brands that we work with, like Fix Medical Scrubs or Reese Witherspoon's brand Draper James or ColourPop, these are brands that are relatively far out in their development. They're incredibly successful. And it's probably important to equally invest in customer retention because they have a very, very large and healthy customer base that are loyal, that are excited about their product announcements, and ultimately they're engaging. However, if you're some of the newer rising brands like Casadrino, olive oil, which is actually number one selling brand on Amazon, as well as bare bone broth or perfect bars, protein bars that are very popular in retail stores. Many of them created a Shopify store because they wanted to engage with their customers. And some of them, because traditionally they leverage other channels to grow their business, now it is actually more important for them to focus on customer acquisition. So to summarize, we genuinely believe that customer acquisition is still very important in the early days when you're just getting started. And for some of you that are listening, just putting the site together, pick your favorite theme. Probably 70-80% of your marketing budget should be really allocating, generating traffic, acquiring new customers, and really focus on the top of funnel. But as you grow, as you kind of get past to, let's call it sort of 10,000, 20,000 sort of customer base that you can market to, then it is absolutely paramount that you start investing in customer retention, whether it's through a loyalty program, email, SMS strategy, being able to even use features that retention signs have, such as lead capturing, to be able to actually just actively collect more data so you can develop a relationship with them is just equally important. So as you continue to thrive and build up your business, maybe shifting that budget to 50-50. And in the long term, we do believe that acquisition still plays an important role. So we would never recommend reduce your allocation to less than probably 30%. But as you can imagine, I think the biggest mistake some of the owners and merchants forget is the fact that they're sitting on such a healthy, large base of existing customers that they forget to speak to sometimes. And that's where really we advocate.
So one thing I noticed at the top of the show, you kind of mentioned that retention science is a little bit more marketing tech, but it's also a data collection, almost a data warehousing type of situation, like both first party and then third party data. Are you able to talk about how you believe people should invest in that? Like, how do you understand the customer more by analyzing data? Because it looks like you're doing both. You have tech that you're executing with a brand, but you have to have the data to be able to execute on it. So are you able to share some information around that?
Absolutely, Steve. So as you mentioned, we're not just a marketing and personalization tool, but more importantly, we're helping merchants to truly understand their customers by being able to consolidate not just many data fields from Shopify, but if and when they're ready to export, import third-party data such as demographic information or maybe loyalty rewards data, or some of them have leveraged other tools, for example, being able to generate sweepstakes and understanding the right registration channel, then we will be able to, our system are able to holistically display all those different data, whether it's first-party behavioral data that are typically cookied through Shopify directly, or third-party data such as media channel, how they're initially acquired, how much money are they spending in a retail store elsewhere versus on a direct-to-consumer website via Shopify. Our goal is to really bring all the data into one place so a business owner and merchant can truly understand the value of each and every single one of their customers that they work so hard to acquire in the first place and to retain. So when you think about customer data collection, it is really important for our listeners today to think about being compliant with GDPR, CCPA, some of these sort of regulations that are being put out, by simply and respectfully asking customers to give their permission to collect data. So that's in the format of a mini pop-up that asking, by browsing through the data, your behaviors is typically being cookied, being analyzed, and being utilized to be able to actually create a better experience for you. So being able to phrase it in a thoughtful way is really important to kind of ease that language for the merchants to think about. And then another thing that we believe why it is so important for our merchant to understand the importance of data collection is think about some of the most successful brands that many of us love, whether it's REI, for example, here in the States. They are most well known for being attentive to what their customers want. Are you someone who is a big camper, or are you just simply a yogi enthusiast? And being able to actually provide you with the right product recommendation is very, very important, just because they have so much selection from a product perspective. And that's exactly what retention science wants to provide to the customers and the Shopify store experience is by delivering the right product to the right customer. So they're not overwhelmed. And at the same time, they feel like, oh, wow, when I came back to the store, and whether it's an email that I receive or SMS text, I'm actually seeing the products that I'm interested in or the product that I looked at previously. And the only way we're able to do that is through thoughtful and respectful data collection that most of us should be actively thinking about to, again, generate that additional sales and that many of us are thinking about.
Yeah, that's really good feedback on that, because I've always wondered about. I think the acronym is like this PII, this personally identifiable information, and it's always been a challenge. This GDPR and this CCPA, this California privacy protection thing that's going on. There's even accessibility questions that come up quite a bit too. So there's quite a few legal things that can happen. So it's nice that you have been thoughtful about that. And you're right. At the end of the day, you're trying to offer a great customer experience. As a site visitor, we know that typically the first visit, they're not going to make a purchase, but, slowly over time, understanding browsing history, understanding a multi-channel environment, where they've been, what they're doing as it relates to that brand, it starts stitching together a story. And then from there, being able to understand the life cycle of that person and say, these touch points equal to sale. That's interesting. And maybe that teaches the marketing people about, well, these are the sort of things that we need to do. And it sounds like that's what retention science is doing with their data, respectfully collecting it, then allowing it, then analyzing it in real time, and then personalizing different ways of engaging with those customers. I think it's really, really, really cool tech.
Thank you.
So let's talk about how we can maybe maximize engagement. So we have this data now, this data is collected. Anything you can share with the listeners today about, like, how do we activate a customer? How do we maximize engagement? How do we get more sales as it relates to your platform?
I love the example of Draper James, which is a brand, really wonderful brand started by actress Reese Witherspoon. They launched their business with us and Shopify together. And one of the most thoughtful things that I thought they've done to activate customers is that not necessarily pushing out for sale, but really get to know their community, why Reese started a brand to begin with. Most of us probably didn't know that she started a brand and named after her grandmother. She has a really wonderful Southern roots, and then she just identified there was a gap, that there's no design specifically dedicated to sort of Southern living. And then so she's able to use some of those personalized data that we spoke of. And so she has 9 retail stores. If we identify that they came into one of the retail stores, we're able to speak to them differently versus if they're a direct-to-consumer Shopify customer. And being able to actually share with them sort of about their community versus immediately push for a purchase by giving out a promotional discount is something that they're very, very thoughtful about. And also rewarding customers that been with them for a while and reactivating them by giving them early access to exclusive products and things that nature are also other really, really smart ways about activating customers and as well as re-engagement. So again, it's about looking into data and what your customers want. We also love another idea is that many merchants oftentimes have loyalty programs, or they encourage their customers to record a video about their products, or maybe that quote unquote unboxing experience, being able to tag them, being able to feature them in some of their communication and just get other customers excited, right? And because sometimes the success is not about us, it's about how we're able to delight them and delight our customers and share that moment in time, that smile, that benefit of the product. So Barebone Broth, a really wonderful brand based out of San Diego, started by Catherine and Ryan Veteran. We love their stories because they're just so thoughtful and about how to engage their customers. And by activating them, it's actually not by delivering a coupon. It's actually by sharing really wonderful recipe on how to cook a delicious soup with their Barebone Broth. So again, there's so many different ideas out there, and sometimes it's not just about leveraging a promotional coupon code. Again, that certainly works, but we encourage all of our merchants to think creatively, listen to their customers, and most importantly, dive into that data of yours so to analyze and see what may or may not work.
And one thing I find too that's interesting is a lot of times we're trying to maximize the basket size. So, when you say, let's say the average order value for some markets is around 50, fashion is usually, around close to 100. So all different verticals have different kind of average order sizes. But the idea here is that how would retention science come up with the right solution? Let's say if the average order value is around 50, like what sort of things would you recommend a brand to do, or what does your tech do maybe to get to 60 or 70 or $80? What sort of things can people do today, I guess, delicately nudge the site visitor in their purchase to spend a little bit more?
Steve, this is probably by far the most used feature amongst many of our Shopify merchants. And I think this is a really important one. Strategically and tactically, and I really encourage the listeners to take a little bit of notes here. If you know for a fact that your average order value is about $50, do not blindly give out offers and just say 20% off all orders. In fact, if your goal is to drive your average order value from 50 to 65, then please take the time to come up with a promotion. And instead of offering to everybody, please set up a threshold of $10 off of a purchase of $65 or more versus keep it at 50. Because the reality is, you know that many of your products are priced and the way your customers have purchased, they will end right around $50. But if you're willing to give out a promotion to drive that AOV basket size, then find a very, very thoughtful message and then put it together and then say, hey, enjoy an exclusive discount by spending $65 or more, and you will get $10 off. And if you look at it, it's still close to 15%, 10 to 15% off if you do the math calculation. So you're still kind of within the margin that you're willing to give up to drive a sale. But all of a sudden, you're getting that incremental $10 to $15, or sometimes knowing that free shipping is sort of a given. But if you, just because of your business, if your products are a little heavier and it costs a little bit more to ship, set a threshold to not offer free shipping until $80 or $100. That's perfectly acceptable, just because we understand that you have a cost that you need to recuperate as well. So with retention science, we have a very, very smart product feature that's called offer optimization. That will allow many of the larger brands that we work with to dynamically, and I repeat that, dynamically assign a personalized promotional offer to every single customer at the individual level. Meaning that for every promotional campaign, if you choose to create a campaign with 4 or 5 different promotional offers, and you can actually interchangeably offer percentage discount versus flat dollars amount, or buy one, get one free, or many of the cosmetic beauty brands that we work with, like Morphe Cosmetics, offers a free gift back with purchase. Those kind of brands, we certainly recommend you provide 4 or 5 different discounts or giveaway, and let the system automatically identify, and maybe Steve in the past never actually used a coupon code, and therefore Steve is not going to get a discount, but Steve will get an offer for a free gift back when you make a free tote bag when you make the purchase. But Jerry, through his past purchase history, we identified that Jerry had only made purchases on Shopify when there is a 20 or 25% discount. Then we are smart enough to know that 15% is probably not going to convert Jerry. So let's go ahead and push the biggest discount to Jerry just to drive that purchase. So again, there is a tremendous amount of technology that's powering some of the features behind the scenes. So let us do the work for you and have you simply focus on the strategy and the promotional plan so you can ultimately drive sales and increase your basket size as you desire.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. It makes me think of another thing too, as far as the creative that goes along with it, because you made a comment about video and almost the customer or the community engagement by someone makes a purchase, and part of the retention strategy is being able to ask for a review, ask for some photos and unboxing kind of a situation. So this UGC, this user-generated content, is a pretty powerful tool that's out there right now. Are you able to comment a little bit about marketing creatives and how people can make decisions creatively if in fact they're working? Because there's the ad side out in social, creating ads and how well those ads are actually working. But then there's people landing on the website and what sort of tactics and things that I guess your data can reveal, or things that you're showing dynamically on the product page on a one-to-one. I just was curious on the A/B testing and the creativity of the website and the content that's on that website that helps people convert more. If you could share any details on that.
Absolutely. And surprisingly, we discover that oftentimes it's not the product image that drives the sales. A lot of times, actually, lifestyle images. If you have a apparel brand, sometimes it's really the aspirational factor. So it's not necessarily about the product. Maybe it's about the benefits. And we always talk about that it's really sales and marketing 101. It's not really about feature selling. It's really about the benefits that your products deliver. I love one of our brands called Lunia. Really wonderful brand on Shopify. They called their store a bedroom. And it's really about creating that intimate relationship and talking about, hey, are you tired of wearing your husband or your boyfriend's oversized t-shirt because they're soft? Guess what? You now have the option for even more comfortable homeware through Lunia. And that kind of messaging and that kind of creative, as you could just like imagine in your head, it's nothing about a product, but it's actually an image of a woman wearing an oversized t-shirt from her her significant other. And that is actually not selling the product, but really highlighting a solution or a problem that their customers might experience. So we certainly challenge our brands and merchants to think outside of the box in terms of the creative and how do you tell a story that sometimes is not as apparent to you and sometimes foregoing the urge of just really showing your products because we're all so in love with our products because we believe in it. But sometimes it's not about the product itself. It's about the problem that we're solving for them. And so, yes, we've had a lot of interesting data, Steve, through just the fact that our product recommendation feature oftentimes ended up showing products that most of the brands will be surprised that actually create the biggest click-through and conversion. And again, that's why at scale, it is absolutely critical to leverage data to tell the right story because, again, every single customer is incredibly unique. And why should we treat them the same way?
Right. I'm going to make sure that I put a lot of these links to these websites of the different brands that you work with. So those listening today, you'll be able to go to the show notes page under links and be able to see some of these brands that have vetted and made the decision to work with Retention Science. And, you might be a good fit depending on your maturity and your complexity and kind of where you are in your business. But we'll talk a little more about that a little bit later. But we do have quite a few links here that's exciting to share what others are doing. And maybe they could be in a similar vertical as you. And there could be some inspirational content in how they're doing it. And you can modify it for your own particular brand. So as you can appreciate, Jerry, this show has a very diverse range of listeners. We have some people that are in the early stage, so it's probably a side hustle, probably still working 9 to 5, doing the day job kind of thing, but they're getting some product market fit, so to speak. So they're able to sell their products and, they got social media and there's some things happening right now, but they haven't quite maybe matured up to the Shopify Plus level yet. And they haven't been able to quit their day job. Probably it's still a side hustle, but they're on their journey and they want it to grow and scale. So because you deal with so many different brands, are you able to share a couple tidbits today about what you believe maybe early stage entrepreneurs should work on today?
Yeah, Steve, I think there's a lot of sort of cost-effective ways, especially in the early days, knowing that every dollar, every penny counts. There's so many different channels that you can reach out to your customers in a very thoughtful, genuine way. I love seeing some of the younger brands like Birdies or Harper Wild, what they've done with their communities, which is hosting weekly Instagram story, live chat, Q&A, just about what it's like to start a business. Again, so much of it's about transparency these days, and customers will reward you and appreciate the fact that you're willing to share some of your struggles or just what you're facing as a business owner. And so we've seen a lot of that. We even have seen like Zoom happy hours for brand with their customers. And again, if you're in the earlier stage, these are very cost-effective way for you to engage your customers. For us as a software, it's about collecting data at scale. But when you're earlier, it's so important to engage with your customers so you can hear what is it that they bought, why they bought from you, why do they like your brand mission, what about your voice that they appreciate. And without really talking to them directly, it's hard to figure that out. And it's so much of this is more of an art than a science. And then so we certainly encourage many of you to get out there, get in front of your customers, whether it's through Instagram Live, whether it's through just reaching out to them, having sort of, Zoom happy hour type of initiatives, or sending out surveys using your your email tool to send out surveys. So get to know them more. What is the scent that you prefer for the deodorant that you tried on? What is the frequency that you use your product? How often do you prefer to buy them? Those are all interesting insights that you'd be surprised that your customers will be willing to share with you for you to actually be even smarter about your own business.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of a live chat solution that's been available to Shopify lately. And what they have done, it's exactly what you're talking about. It's almost like reducing this customer frustration a little bit and just offering some extra engagement and stuff. You're talking about this community building and having these Zoom chats and, these Instagram live and just being like authentic and transparent. I think this company, I think it's Live Web, I believe, or liveweb.io. But in any case, it's interesting what they've done is that they're now allowing on the product page to actually use their tech to be able to communicate almost like you're getting a live person, like a live chat, but now you get actually have a live video chat on the product details page with a curator, someone, a customer service. It all depends on the brand you have, but it just shows you there's lots of opportunity out there of how do I engage our customers to be honest and authentic. And I think with this kind of work at home initiatives that's happening right now because of this pandemic, all these things that are going on in the world, people are warming up more to these sorts of things, and they're okay. I mean, there's even this going joke. I've been on a webinar recently, and the poll at the beginning was saying, they asked everybody on there and said, are you wearing pants or are you still in your pajamas right now? Like it's these are things this is what's happening in the world right now. And we have to be okay with that.
Absolutely. This is the new norm, Steve.
So that's the early stage people. Now, what about those that would be, I guess I would consider them more in the mid-market, maybe even enterprise. They have a small team. They're definitely eager to grow and scale. They might be more in your sweet spot too for potential clients. But what sort of things do you believe the executive team should work on, or maybe even the marketing team?
Yeah, Steve, Fix Medical Apparel will probably be a shining example that I could think of, and especially during a time like this where they provide quality and well-fitted medical scrubs to our nurses and doctors at the front line. One thing that we have really observed during the last 5 years that we've been super privileged to partner with their team in building out their Shopify site and really experience that explosive growth is that they have certainly invested in personalization and their understanding of customer data. One very tactical thing that they've done is that they invested in a very specific role that we don't see everywhere, which is a retention marketing manager. If you think about something that as specific as retention marketing, it really requires a business to get to a certain level to start thinking about loyalty, customer retention. How do we get her to purchase that third order when we know that she has made a second purchase within the last 6 months? How do we thoughtfully really put together a program to ensure that upsell does take place in the 9th month so we as a business can benefit from having that customers being a part of our community? Those are something that I think as a mid-market to enterprise businesses are aggressively thinking about. And while it is an investment from a personnel perspective, it's certainly paid dividend. So I encourage businesses that are seeing explosive growth to certainly think about investing in a retention marketing manager beyond just your standard social media, affiliate, SEO. In fact, think about how to retain your existing customers, because remember, it literally costs a third to retain an existing customers than acquire a new one.
Yeah, that's good stats, and that's what I share all day long with my brand. So you're recommending to have a retention marketing manager is I think really good feedback for those that are in the mid-market to enterprise. So if you don't have that title or that person in that role, that might be something that you might want to consider. On a side note too, the Figs company, medical apparel company, I think it's wearfigs.com. Just as a side note, they've donated over 30,000 sets of scrubs. So they are really making a significant impact for this kind of COVID-19 relief efforts, which I think is just going to have such a, it's kind of a twofold. It's like they're doing it because it's the right thing to do, and it's timely to do it. It's also just the long-term benefits now of what this brand is doing to build loyalty now. And so having a retention manager involved in all of this is just pretty amazing.
Yes, Taylor, Alex over there, the marketing team are phenomenal. And Trina and Heather, who are the founders, are just absolute visionaries and care about giving back. And those are wonderful, wonderful things that they're doing in terms of donating 30,000 plus medical apparels. And we absolutely love them.
So let's talk about the future of retention science. Are you able to share any North Star highlights or anything for your 2020 roadmap? I'm always interested about partner alignment or any innovation. At the end of the day, how do you believe the product is going to mature for the rest of 2020 and maybe into 21?
Absolutely. We're so excited about what's ahead of 2020. I think with the pandemic, I think everyone recognizes that the future is e-com, and we're certainly thinking that way. And so for us, immediately, it's really about channel expansion. We want to be channel agnostic. Wherever your customers are, we want to be able to help merchants speak to them. So we just recently released SMS, and we'll continue to expand to other channels such as direct mailers and connecting with physical retail POS systems, and then being able to import, export data more seamlessly. Also, because we are a customer data platform, having CRM features such as predictive segments and being able to proactively help brands identify what kind of products your customers are more interested in is something that we've invested a lot of data science and efforts in terms of just being able to produce machine learning based algorithms to help our brands just generate more meaningful insights so they can leverage for their marketing tactics. And so those are some of the things that are really important. In terms of going to 2021, we certainly believe that in the long term, the only way merchants can relate to their customers is by breaking down the barriers. That means being more authentic. That means by putting themselves out there and knowing who the founders are, the reason why they started a business, they contributed to the society, and having a North Star. Those are things that are very, very important to shoppers and brands. And then so our innovation roadmap certainly ties closely to how do we help brands in telling a even more relevant story in a time where there's a lot of noise out there. So features such as being able to integrate with many of our UGC service providers, being able to tie in more reviews, as well as being able to send out different campaigns based on loyalty rewards points. Those are all some of the existing features that we have. But as you know, there's hundreds and thousands of technologies within the Shopify ecosystem. And so we certainly want to be able to connect with more of them through our data integration efforts. And so those are probably the biggest focus for us in 2020 and 2021.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that. We are nearing the end of the show for today. Do you have any closing comments or any takeaways that you would like to leave with our listeners today?
Yeah. And well, first of all, thank you again for having me on the show, Steve, and being a huge fan. I think when I think about my journey as a merchant and building my business, I often think about those relationships I built with my customers. At the end of the day, it's really about why we started the business. What is the gap? What is the challenges that we're looking to solve for? I think especially during a time like this, more important than ever, please take the time to get to know your customers. Please take the time to really actually collect the data and assess what is it that you can do to continue to add value. It is important to generate sales because at the end of the day, that's what keeps us afloat. And we know that this is indeed a difficult time for many of us. We certainly believe that the only way for you to build a thoughtful and a very successful business long term is by having loyal customers who have great lifetime value and who are ecstatic about the brand that you're building long term. So please take the time to get to know them, invest in customer retention, in retention marketing, and not necessarily focus on promotional sales, but you'll be surprised that when you take the time to get to know your customers, how they respond in return. Feel free to reach out to me anytime. I am just jerry@retentionscience.com. And if I can be helpful personally or tell you more about our software offering. But at the end of the day, just like many of you, I am a merchant at heart, and I wish you all very best of luck.
Thank you so much for that. It's retentionscience.com. I'll make sure I update the show notes with all these details. I subscribe to your blog and get all the case studies. The more recent one was the bare bones broth case study, but there's lots of in there. You can take a look at the resources, the clients. It's amazing. You have a lot of great stuff in there. So those listening today, retentionscience.com, great thought leadership articles and things are going on over there. other than that, thanks, Jerry. I just massively appreciate you, coming on the show today and taking time out of your day, and sharing some great insights. Just at the end of the day, how Shopify brands could personalize their customer journeys and end of the day, just really help, as you said, like build this lifetime customer loyalty. So I really massively appreciate that.
Thank you, Steve. Take care.
This episode was brought to you by ShipBob, one of the fastest growing tech companies in America that's powering the direct-to-consumer revolution. Join over 3,000 e-commerce brands that choose ShipBob as their fulfillment partner and start scaling your business by delivering remarkable customer experiences. You can get more details by heading on over to shipbob.com. Well, that's it for today's episode. I'd like to thank you, a loyal listener of E-commerce Fastlane. It's my hope that this podcast is offering you a ton of value through growth strategies, tactics, and exclusive insider tips on the best Shopify apps and marketing platforms, all with my personal goal to help you build, launch, grow, and scale with Shopify. Thanks for investing some time today and listening to the show. I'm so proud and excited that you have a growth mindset and are a constant learner. I truly appreciate you and your entrepreneurial journey. Enjoy the rest of the week and keep thriving with Shopify.